And we are back. Another week, another live stream. We might be a little bit late. I say we. Reece might be a little bit late. But better late than never. How are you, mate? Sorry, I've just outed you there, and I just straight away.
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good.
Throw me under the bus, yeah.
I know. Do you know what? I'm still bemused by the fact that the first thing you said to me is that you're boiling hot. Because down here, down in the deep south of Cornwall, it's so mild, like a bit of rain, bit of mizzle or drizzle, depending where you're from. Yeah, rubbish weather. Meanwhile, you're apparently in a sauna.
It's way too hot. Way too hot. I've got all my lights on. I'm gonna burn. I might actually not make it to the end of this podcast.
What shirt are you wearing tonight, by the way? Oh, is that an England shirt?
Yeah, it was like, I think it was the 90s, but I got it because I remember like when it was like 30 quid like a few years ago, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cheap for an England shirt. That does the job. So I got the England one on today for the brilliant result against Senegal. So
Oh gosh, I've got to be honest. Like, there are players in that squad that just can't go back in the squad. Kyle Walker. I don't know what's going on.
Half of the team. What is he doing? Why is Henderson still in the team playing as a sitter? I don't understand it. But
it is nuts, isn't it?
I don't get it.
I get it. Like, players are on the beach. There's the whole idea of friendlies right now should just be, as far as I'm concerned, it should just be washed. Just let the players rest. Transfer season in. Even a Club World Cup. Like, it's just another thing.
It starts tomorrow. Yeah, going up entire month.
Like, I hope
it fails.
I'm going to fall into the trap and I will watch it, but I'm really not bothered. Like, it's, I don't know. It's stupid, isn't it? Might as well, actually.
It's so weird for me because, like, I was just saying, I hope it fails. Like, I've wanted it to fail for a while, just because I don't like FIFA, and I think this is just another one of their money traps. But then I was looking at all the games yesterday, and I was like, it's on DAZN. It's like a tenner. I was like, oh, I kind of do want to watch some of the South American teams play. And I was like, this is where they get you. But I was like, I'm glad we're not in it.
Oh, mate. Right. Like, let's go through the general chit chat, because I know we're going to compare some players in a bit. But I think we have to address the whole Trent speaking Spanish saga. Like, what is going on? Like, he's PR as well for him has been awful. I don't know if you've seen the interview with him as well, saying he's been waiting for so long, and then he's obviously realizing, like, oh no, people are going to realize I've been meaning, I want to leave about a year and a half ago. And then he's going, oh, no, I mean, a couple of weeks I've been waiting, not years. Just think, he has got to be media trained, because it has been a disaster this past, like, month. Do you think the Liverpool fans are in their own right of being annoyed at him speaking fluent Spanish now and, eating paella instead of paella? Is that all right? Is that founded?
I don't know. I'm just in this sort of logic where, like, I think too many people think in this world they're kind of important. And I do think that, like, ultimately, I look at it from the perspective of Trent, and I go, like, it kind of makes sense. Like, he wanted to move for a long time. He knew his contract was up. It's not like he was always going to finish his contract at Liverpool. He was doing what he told them he was going to do. And then he was willing to go, which is the whole point of a contract in the first place. I think if that happened with, like, Saka, obviously I'd be annoyed. But I would also consider at that point, if Saka had won us Premier Leagues, Champions League trophies, I wouldn't really mind as much, because it'd be like, well, he has done everything he can at this club. What else is there for him other than becoming a global superstar? And, like, Trent is, like, individually great at what he's great at, but he isn't the most all-round best player in the world. He isn't someone that you can just rely on at all points. So for him as well, it's not like he's not a winger, he's not a forward. He is a fullback at the end of the day. There's only so much limited in his position as well. So I'm just like, it is what it is. Like, I actually think learning Spanish early shows a lot of respect, at least to his new club. I get Liverpool fans are upset, but It is what it is, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? You see it from both points of view, like, and it's funny, like you saying he's not great at things. Like he's obviously an amazing passer of the ball. He's obviously an amazing dead ball specialist. He's great at speaking Spanish, but he's not great at renewing contracts for his boyhood team. Is that too harsh? Possibly. But yeah, like if you're going to get a job and like multi-million pounds, it is, and as much Liverpool fans would be annoyed, the dream job. Playing for Real Madrid, there's not really anything better. You might argue Barcelona. I don't know. Is there any other team out there? Probably not. So, like,
Real Madrid's the biggest team in the world, so
yeah,
it's
I'd agree with that. The
levels to this,
heritage and
really.
stuff. And he's talked quite a lot about, becoming the first right back to win the Ballon d'Or and things. And at least he's actually got reasons to do that and go. And he has given his best, and he had let the club know that he would be leaving. And there's reports of 20 million being offered and offers of like 50 million. I don't know what it actually is. Liverpool had the opportunity to get some money. It wasn't a case of like it just suddenly was sprung on them. So, I mean, we say about it over and over and over again. When players get in the final 2 years, you have got to start making that decision. And when he wasn't going to sign, from what I know, he'd said quite explicitly, I'm not staying. I won't be renewing. I'll be moving on. So I think the club were at fault probably more than Trent, to be honest. But yeah, emotions in football, it's really hard, isn't it? It's just difficult. Talking of emotions, a player more linked to our club though, Victor Gyökeres. Like the meltdowns going on, including people at Sporting, is mad. Like I don't know what you believe, so let's just run back through kind of the media furor of the whole thing. So apparently, Gyökeres had his agents meet with Arsenal. Then am I right in thinking at that point? Hang on, let's get this right. At that point, they then said they hadn't met with Arsenal, and then the director, the owner of Sporting, said we don't have an agreement for 60 million plus 10 million. I mean, there's so many different. I can't keep track of the history. Can you remember exactly like which part came where?
I think, I don't know, reports came out there has been an agreement or whatever, there'd been an offer, but obviously I've heard a lot of things about him as a person, which is a bit, interesting. He's a bit of a crackhead. But like I think then then they came out and said, I think more reports came out and said there isn't actually agreement because the rumors were that we'd already bidded and we were going to bid a second time. Did reports about every has been an official first bid before that comes into play. And then he came out and said that like don't believe everything you're hearing because there's also like the whole Man United side to it. There's rumors that he's like agreeing a deal with Man United as well, and a lot of Man United fans believe he's like coming to them right now. So it's all just like really confusing. I think that like I actually don't think Arsenal have put an offer in. Maybe we met his agent. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we meet everyone's agent. This is what really annoys me about the German guy on Twitter, where he talks about like, oh, Arsenal have this player on their list. Yeah, we probably have about 80 wingers on our list, like every week. We probably talk to like we probably spoke to Matoma's agent and family and everything. And it doesn't mean we're going to go in for Matoma. It just means that we were like looking if that is an option if we have to. So like when I look at stuff like that, I don't think we have gone in for Gyökeres. I don't think we've put an offer in. I think that obviously like we've probably agreed like whatever we can say mutual agreement on not written down contract talks with the player, but then like they're not really like that formal nowadays. We've seen everyone just going back on their gentleman's agreements. And he's clearly he was annoyed apparently about Sporting's like putting the money up, but now apparently Sporting have put the money back down because he's got upset about it, which
Yeah.
he should be upset because if you're going to tell a player you're going to do something, I know it's not written down, but it's still like realistically, I get that football clubs don't think like this and they're thinking, well, he's our best talent in a long time, but like it's not as serious for Sporting. But I was thinking about this, and we'll get on to Leipzig. But the Leipzig situation is like they're going against the agreement of the player. You sign all these young, fun players. A lot of them are going to be like, well, why should I come to you if you're just going to screw over other players? Like, if I'm a 20-year-old talent from like Salzburg, I'd be like, why would I go there if they're just going to hold me at ransom and lie about how much they're going to sell me for? I don't know about that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the whole Gyökeres situation right now, but I think we've agreed. Like, I think we have the option of both of them if we can agree finances with the team. But I think both
Yeah.
player is probably down. That's what I can get.
It's so confusing because to me it seems that the agents are putting bits out to essentially get him a move. Then I think Berta and Arsenal are releasing certain things probably to help with the Sesko deal. So it looks like, we've got other options and we can go for Sesko. At the same time, Sporting then are coming out because part of it they want to keep the player and part of it is they want to get as much money as they possibly can, and rightfully so. And then everyone's kind of almost like screwing themselves over, quite frankly, because it doesn't look good for the club. And as you say, why a player's going to want to go there if this is the most recent thing and this is how they treat the best, one of the best players in their history. The agents aren't going to do well because it's going to look like now you've got a player who is throwing his toys at the pram and, refusing to play and things like that. And then for Arsenal, it's not looking good because essentially it's looking like, oh, well, you're not putting in bids that are reasonable. And actually now Leipzig are going to be able to turn around and go, well, we know that Sporting aren't going to sell to you and you're not putting up enough. So you're going to have to pay what we want. So like in all camps, it just looks bad. And I understand that everyone's trying to do the best for their own individual, but it's a bit of a mess at the moment. It's a really, really odd one. But nevertheless, of course, we're part of it. Do you think
I,
on do you think on the whole, are we kind of bumbling along? Are we not doing enough work? Because for me, there's all the news with Liverpool moving quickly in the market. City have obviously moved quickly in the market. Are we moving too slowly at the moment?
See, this is actually something I've been considering over the last couple of days because when I watch like podcasts and other people talk about transfer news just as a whole in the Prem, the sort of motion that Arsenal are moving slow, I think is a bit like misinformed. Especially like I think if you compare us to Liverpool and City, yeah, that's a fair enough point. But people bringing up Chelsea who have signed like a couple of players, but ultimately they didn't sign Mike Magnon, they didn't sign Gitten so far. They might sign these players down the line, but they haven't happened. Same with United. United have only signed Cunha, and that was a release clause. So that obviously was going to happen very quickly. I think when it comes to us, I think there's a level of yes, maybe. And I think in some markets, this might hurt us, which we'll get into. But I think in terms of like the striker market, which is our priority and has to be our priority in many ways, I think making deals for Sesko and Gyökeres is going to take a while, given the situation that both the clubs are at that we're trying to deal with, both the players in general, and just being ahead of other teams and making sure we are, putting a good, reasonable deal in if it gets to that point is fair enough. I think that I think we're moving fine, and I've actually praised Berta a lot recently because we don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. But I made a video about this, but everything I'm hearing about the news in the media is making me very encouraging that we're actually being a proper team. And like when I look at the news of when us like even the whole rumors about Gyökeres agreeing to all our Arsenal bidding for Gyökeres yesterday or the day before, instantly I didn't think that was a agent thing. I thought that was a Berta thing. I thought Berta had seen that Leipzig are playing hard to get, and Leipzig need to sell. Bear in mind before a certain
Mm-hmm.
point. Their director of football needs as much money as he can, and they're trying to sell a lot of players. But Šeško is the number one they probably want to sell early. So they're playing hard to get for absolutely no reason when the player clearly wants to come. So I think Berta is trying to do the thing where he's talking to Gyökeres, and I still think Gyökeres is a available option there, but I think he's just trying to play that sort of 4D chess with Leipzig to make them rush a little bit because it isn't just Arsenal. I think some of the teams we're dealing with also are stallers,
Yeah.
especially Sporting. Sporting are just famous stallers. They always have been. Unless you've got a release clause with a Portuguese side, they will take ages usually to agree a deal, which is is just how it is. So I do think we are moving slow, but it's okay right now. Like the window isn't even open right now. I think it doesn't open that many days though, does it? I thought it was
No,
shut for like a
no.
few weeks. I think it's only shut for like a week.
Yeah,
So that comes back, and then it should be a bit easier. But I do think when we'll get onto it, I don't want to speak too much now, but the winger market is certainly a point of contention where I'm like, maybe we need to start.
yeah. I mean, for me, if we get players in before preseason, I'm not bothered. I don't think it makes any difference if you get them in a week before or a day before preseason. Just get them in for preseason. Get them to move. Go abroad with the team. Get used to the characters in the squad. Used to Arteta and his system, and that's all I can ask for. Getting it done now. I mean, it's great for PR, but at the same time, I've been told that Sociedad don't want the deal for Zubimendi to go through yet. They're stalling on purpose because they need it for the next financial year. So they're kind of waiting on that. Also, for us as fans, we're so impatient. So, I mean, how many days has the window been open so far? And people are panicking. Everyone's going mental about, oh my god, we haven't bought a player yet. Like, okay, we've got plenty of time. The season doesn't start for like a month, so chill out a minute. And then I think if for our own sanity, if players are kind of spread out through the window, we kind of chill out. Did you remember the window? We got all the work done quite early. And then at the end of the window, people were still going, we need to sign 2 more players. We need 3 more players. And it's just because you see everyone else doing work in the market and then you feel like you're kind of doing an adequate amount. I think that's half of it. So if we get the players through the door that we need by pre-season, I'm happy. I would presume we get most of our business done by then. Maybe like one player comes through the door a little bit later, joins late or just after pre-season, because some deals you just can't get done. Like you say, like for Sporting, if they stall, them losing Gyökeres isn't horrendous because the quality of the league and stuff, I don't think it'll make a massive difference to their title charge, if that makes sense. I think they can get by and they can get players that can be
I
like
mean, yeah.
utilized. But like, say for us, if we lost to Saka, like, one of our best players, it would be panic stations because how do you replace that talent? Whereas in the Portuguese league, I think they know they're going to be in the top 2 regardless. Gyökeres just makes it far easier for them. So it's all context, like for teams and for
I mean,
transfers.
yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah, that's so true. I mean, even Sporting now they're fine. Like, I mean, Gyökeres didn't even play majority of well, he did, but like he was injured for a bit or was struggling with some fitness issues, and they played a guy called Harder who was
Mhm.
literally fine. Like, I don't think they're in that situation where it really matters, and the money to them as well. Like, if you give a Portuguese team money, they're probably just going to go to Brazil and buy loads of youngsters and probably succeed with them. Even though Sporting are less likely to do that than a Porto or Benfica, they are more like
Yeah.
the sort of teams that really like look in them areas. But yeah, it is just like how it is. I think it is just because people basically Liverpool have done a lot of their work early. And now Liverpool need to sell to do other work because there is links to Ekatike, there is links to a centre back that they want. And in order to do that, I know that they need to sell now. But they just got the money in early. They got the Verts in. They got the Fringpongs and Kershkes. I don't know if Kershkes even signed yet, but like that's been like talked about. And it's the same with City. And I don't even think City signings are that good, to be honest. I've made videos on a lot of them and I've analysed a lot of them. And I'm actually I'm not actually sure they're that good. Like, I actually think they're a little overrated. I think every single one has like severe problems that
Mhm.
I'm not sure how City are going to overcome. But it is Pep and he is amazing. So maybe I'll just figure it out. So that's it. We just need to get it right. Like, we have to be careful in these situations. Also, like, we'll talk about it, but our number one link to wingers is Rodrigo, and we have to wait for the after the Club World Cup where Rodrigo's going to make his decision. So with stuff like that, it's like, why should we jump into anything when we are waiting for someone like him? And with Šeško and Gyökeres, I think it's quite clear that Šeško wants to come to Arsenal. Maybe Gyökeres can be tempted by United, by Amarin, maybe. I still think he'd rather come to Arsenal, but that is what it is. And if Šeško is our number one target and he wants to come to Arsenal, it's like that sort of thing. It's like a matter of time. I don't like how long we take sometimes. And I think last year, when we took so long with Marino, that really annoyed me because we missed the whole of pre-season because we were faffing about, even though he wanted to come. But like the preseason doesn't start till a month anyway. We've got ages until that. Everyone's on holiday, so until then, yeah, I'm not really worried. And I think we need to get the forward line sorted before we start buying defenders. And I think that's what will happen. I think Kepa will probably come in first. He might be our first signing. I wouldn't be surprised by that. And then Zubamendi, you would expect by July, start of July,
Yeah.
maybe that will be confirmed. Um, and then after that, we've got to get the striker and the winger in, or at least the striker, and then we can start selling players to buy defenders. Like I've seen a lot of defenders linked, there are a lot of good ones that I really like. But that's not a priority, and they're not like massive signings. So in my opinion, that's like, well, it depends who it is, but that kind of needs to wait. So it just takes time. Like we've also got sell Zinchenko. If we're getting rid of Kivior, we've got to make that judgment. Nelson's got to go. Vieira's got to go. So we've got work. Like it's all about getting like one or two signings in, then doing all the work we need to, and then getting the rest in. Really.
Yeah. It'll be interesting with Berta as well, how he attacks it, because in the past, Edu has kind of waited. He hasn't bought and then essentially backed himself to sell players. I'm really interested to see if Berta does all of the work and signings. Let's get these players in the door, and then we'll think about the selling later and kind of back himself. Go, I know I can get these players out the door. I know I can get some money. Whereas, yeah, as I say, in the past, I think it's been like one in, one out almost on policy. Do you think, let's kind of go through before we go on the actual kind of main topic of the pod. Like you mentioned City signings. I have to say, and annoyingly, I do agree with you. Like, I worry about how those players for City translate to the Premier League. They're not the most, overly physical players. And we've seen in the past, especially in the, recently, the game is moving more transition based. Players are quite physical. I don't know how a Cherky or, I don't know how those players translate into our game. And I'd have to back Pep. You can't, it's hard to go against him. But they're spending a lot of money if you include January as well. And I look and I go,
It's
who's
so
like a
weird.
nailed on starter for them? Who's a nailed on superstar for them? And you might go with Cherky, and we've mentioned him on here as an option, especially for the price. But there's some major drawbacks with that signing. Like would you at the moment, if the
Oh
window's
yeah,
shut,
yeah.
what would you kind of rate it out of 10 for them?
I mean, genuinely, like I think that the players they've signed have really big upside in certain aspects and really big downsides in other ones. And I think like all their signings really do show they are going for a transitional based approach, which they have been for about 8 months. Like they
Mhm.
are one of the teams that have been really doing it, especially last season when they were struggling, like bringing Marmoush in, playing it over the top a lot more. It is very much like what City are doing. Tijani Reinders is like the perfect example of that. He is literally a guy that will just run with the ball all the time, quickly up the pitch and take people on. Now, the problem I have with that is that that's great in everything. He's brilliant as a carrier. He's a good build-up player. Like he can receive the ball from the goalie, turn and run. Although I'm not sure in the Prem how he's going to be able to do that if he gets pressed high in big games. Like I think if Rice is on him, that could be quite a mismatch, even though it's the other side. But if Rice play on the right,
Mhm.
and I do worry about Reinders specifically with certain aspects of he is very good when he's on the ball, but he's not very good off the ball. And I look at the same with Cherky. Cherky is a great player on the ball, but off the ball doesn't have that work rate. And Out Nori is like an overlapping left back, what people call him. Even though when I watch him, he reminds me more of a inside player. He prefers running. Like he can overlap, and he's not a bad overlapping player at all. But he's not really like a natural wing back in that sense. He's not really like a Kershkev who will always run down the width. He's more of a player that will run centrally with the ball a lot, which is
Yeah, I
fine
know
for
what you
City. I
mean.
think they can make that work, especially if they have Doku play a lot wider on that left anyway. So that's kind of fine because he can take people on. But I don't think Out Nori's that good. Like I think he's good. They spent 30 mil on him. I think for that price, that's a good signing. Do I think he's going to be the starting left back for City next season all the time? No. I think there's going to be severe issues with him out of possession, especially on the counter. He doesn't run back enough, in my opinion. And his positioning is a bit crazy sometimes. Maybe City will get the best out of him. They do with a lot of their players, but there's also a lot of their players recently I don't like. People talk about Nunez, and it's like, oh, he's got a great job out of Nunez in this right back position. Yeah, he has, but he's still really limited and really struggles with certain aspects. And there's a reason why City are not great defensively. It's not just him, of course, but he is one of the big reasons, in my opinion, when I watch him. So I think like all their signs have big upsides. But in my opinion, other than Reinders, they're not starting. Obviously, Rodri coming back does mean like realistically their team is just going to be a lot better, and like that's got something I've got to think about. But a midfield of what Reinders on the left centre mid, DM
Mhm.
you've got Rodri, and then right centre mid's going to be what Cherky maybe or Foden. Foden makes more like Cherky be all right there, but Rodri's going to have to do a lot of work off the ball to make that team
Yeah,
work.
it really is.
So I think for now it's genuinely like a 4 or 5 out of 10. Like I know a lot of City fans won't like that, but I mean, I've done videos on all these players. Like I watch City a lot, and I just think like maybe I just don't know how it's going to work, and they will completely change their stuff out of possession. And I do think a lot of their out of possession work is going to be a lot more passive than aggressive. And I actually think a lot of teams have turned into a more passive system. Liverpool did a lot of last season with Slot. We won't. I don't. Well, we might sometimes. We're actually pretty good at tempo control and sort of understanding when to press. So I don't really mind with us doing it too much, especially with the presses we've got. But a lot of big teams in the Prem are going to do this sort of, we're not going to press you, we're going to wait, and then we're going to wait for you to commit, and then we're going to counter on you. And I think
Mhm.
that's kind of what City are trying to do with their signings.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, your team's is only as good as the sum of its parts, and I think the squad itself, if you look like quality, it's full of quality. It's just whether I don't know whether they can get a real established 11 from the players that they've got now. I think in the past it was so obvious who they were going to play, but like you say now, like that, even the midfield, you look at the midfield, who really is the midfield three, and are you fully confident in it? I mean, it's a get out of jail clause, isn't it? Having Rodri in there, that does make a huge difference, and they will be a completely different beast with him back. But is De Bruyne really replaced? Is the like the old Gundogan? Is that really replaced? I don't know. I really don't know. Let's move on to us though.
Well, I think Reinders will be better than Gundogan, but that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
I,
move on
I
to
mean
us. Yeah.
the old Gundogan before he went and then came back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So the purpose of this pod. I mean, we've spent what? How long have we been going? About half an hour. We still haven't got to it. We're going to go through players linked to the club, and we're going to choose between the two. All right. So we might as well. Should we just start off with the two that we've already mentioned? Should we start off with Gyökeres and Sesko? Yep. All right, let's go for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's do it.
I thought you were going to say no. I want to go with Garnacho and I don't know whoever else. Who is another player that you've been mentioning? Oh, Darwin Núñez. Let's go with
Well,
those.
everyone knows I do. We could go Garnacho and Rashford.
Oh
One,
my
two, one,
god!
two.
All
I mean,
right,
I do
let's
actually
go
like
for it. Let's
Garnacho, but we're
start.
not getting into it here. But
Go
I
on,
do
no,
like Garnacho.
let's go for it. I know you. Garnacho. I'd have to go Rashford. I'm sorry. I can't have Garnacho at our team. I just can't. Oh, there's something just to look at that drives me insane with him anyway. There's definitely an attitude there.
I think
It,
given given our team, I think obviously Rashford makes more sense, but I think Garnacho is such an underrated player. He is so good. Like I think people just look at him at United and just think he's awful, but he's a shot monster. Okay, his shots
yeah.
aren't always the best, but he shoots a lot. He's a great dribbler. He can score from anywhere. Like he's really fast, which we also don't have.
Mm-hmm.
He loves going inside, but can go on the outside pretty well. He's like if he played for like I always say this, but if he played for Napoli, everyone would be talking about how he's insane. And I just
Yeah.
think because he's at
True.
United, it's so like people can't see it. But yeah,
I mean, how old is he? Is he 21? Maybe
yeah,
even
like
younger.
2021,
Yeah. So I mean,
super
there's a lot
young.
of upside with him. I just hope he fails. I'm on one tonight. Sorry. I just let and think out of the two of them, the experience with Rashford for where we are right now, the height, although he doesn't always use it, his ball striking is unreal. Like, he doesn't show it enough, but sometimes some of his shots, if you look at Rashford's career, is unbelievable. Pressure moments as well. Like, if we're getting towards the end of, a knockout phase, I would back Rashford in a penalty. I really would. I know, everyone misses penalties at some stage, but he has had some high pressure moments and come out through it. And I think you could probably get a relatively good deal with him now. I just don't like Garnacho at the end of the day, so Rashford for me.
I think, yeah, I think with the wages of I feel like Rashford's a little bit of like a mini Leao, and I still feel
Mm,
like some of the concerns I have about a Leao signing will probably have the same with a Rashford. Like
yeah,
he is
first.
off the ball pretty useless. He doesn't. He's the way that he tries to press people actually annoys me so much. Like he just like he'll go like 2 feet in front of someone and look like he's gonna try and then just give up. Like, and I'm just like, you know, at least if you're not going to press, just don't press. I hate when players go towards players and then give up. Like it was a little bit like the England goal we see against Senegal. Like you can blame maybe Miles's positioning, but Gibbs White goes to mark the guy, and it just doesn't bother, and then he scores, and I'm like, it just annoys me. If you didn't mark him at the start, at least Miles would know, okay, I'll come over. But because he
Yeah.
just didn't get like that clear indication, I just hate when players do that. That really annoys me.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't blame you. All right, we've got that one out of the way. Oh, that is a horrible one. Next one. So Darwin Núñez versus. Right, we got to do Gyökeres, haven't we? Let's be honest. Gyökeres, Sesko. Let's go through. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do. I mean, let's do Sheshko because
Oh.
this guy's like my brother at this point. If I could 400 times, I might as well get over and don't speak about him again.
I feel like you've written a biography on him at this stage. I mean, to me, he seems like the one who's more obvious. It looks like that's the one we're actually going to go for. It's definitely Arteta's choice. Aerially, probably better. Upside, long term, probably, higher. I would suggest he would probably suit our system better as well currently. Even with the arrival of a player like Rodrigo, I can imagine Sesko doing quite well there. Although I guess you could argue with Gyökeres coming wide, maybe that gives an opportunity for Rodrigo to come more central. But I'm not too sure about that argument. Yeah, I think Sesko for me, he's probably the more obvious choice. But I've said in the past about I just want shots at this point. So, and I know Gyökeres will shoot, but we'll get onto him in a minute. Anything you want to kind of add about Sesko?
Where do I start? Sheshko is my guy. There's something about him. There's always been something about him. Even when he was at Salzburg, like FM21, FM22, this guy was just so good. And like, for me, he's one of my first players that, like, when I first found him on Football Manager, he's one of the first players that I didn't really know at all. And I found him on Football Manager. Me and my mates found him on a save. And when I started looking into him, I was like, wow, this guy. And when I started like analyzing football a lot more properly, he's one of the players I really like wanted to look at because I thought like he has so many cool transferable skills, but will he get to that level? Would be very interesting to see. And I never ever considered he'd be an Arsenal player or like even linked with us like this because it's not a situation I thought we'd necessarily have to be in when we're buying a striker like this. But what's happened and we're linked to him heavily. I think Sheshko is like I think the major concerns that people have about him are I think have to be given within context, and I get them, and I think there is major concerns there. I think when we're talking about like Gyökeres and his league, which is a major thing everyone keeps talking about, the Portuguese league isn't good. And obviously, I'm not someone that thinks the Bundesliga is a very good defensive league. I think it is very open, one of the better leagues to go to in the top five. Although it does have obviously a lot more quality than the Portuguese league. But I think when it comes to Sheshko, like I look at him, and I've been watching a lot of Leipzig over the last couple of weeks because I watched them a bit at the start of the season because I used to like them, and then they were just awful, so I kind of stopped. And how they use him fundamentally is really poor. And I think the reason why some of his stats, especially like goals and assists wise, are low is because they just don't even get the best out of him anyway. Like a lot of the time, they play this sort of counter-attacky system, but he is by himself. Okay, you can argue Gyökeres is, but there's a much better defenders in the league. And Šeško, a lot of the time, is not used as that main man up front. He's used as a
Mm.
facilitator. There's so many times he's taken touches out on the wings. I think on this left wing, he's taken like a third or fourth of his touches from there. He's 6'6". Why is he taking touches on the wing? And like he is a good dribbler, and like Isak is the same. Isak's a good dribbler, like an incredible dribbler out wide. So when Newcastle play, they actually have Isak come out of that and come inside a little bit more. Especially it's easier when they go long from goal kicks and long from long balls, which I think we can use Šeško for. But fundamentally, we need him to get in there a lot more than they are using him. I also think he doesn't really get help a lot by his teammates. It's very much, I mean, the whole Leipzig attack has been awful this season. Like, you think about the quality they have: Openda, Šeško, Nusa, Xavi Simons, and they've just got nothing out of half of them. I think they have the second least amount of shots or something in the Bundesliga, leading to another shot.
That's nuts.
They just do not shoot enough as a team overall. And like people have been talking about Newsom. I said this about Newsom. Like, he's been used in 9 positions this season, and he's a left winger. They play a 5 back. What are they doing? Like, it's the same idea I have with Šeško. I think he would be better in a single 9 than a double. And at like proper wingers, I think wingers would help him a lot more. I think also when I look at Šeško, I think if you don't have so much like reliance on him to keep coming deeper and sort of pass it through for runners, I think that's a good thing. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, but we still don't have any runners at the time of talking. We have Saka, but we know he needs to be on the ball. Everyone's ball to feet. So I think he needs to be that runner. He needs to stretch the teams out deeper, which I think will make him better. I think the gaps will be easier for him, and he's able to get a lot more shots away. Like he in the box, I have worries about him because he isn't really a snappy striker. Unlike Gyökeres will be in the box and he'll sniff at danger and just shoot and he'll go in. Šeško needs a lot of touches sometimes to sort of get his shooting right, and that's why he's so much better from long range at the moment than he is in shorter areas, because he gets that time to actually take his effort. And I think that is like a concern I have, but he is just so big sometimes that, like, especially in the air, if we just do good enough crosses, we will eventually reach him and he will score. And he's got a great leap on him. He's just not very physical. And like one of the biggest concerns I have about him is when he does come deeper, he is not very good at using his body to like get people out of the way. A bit like Mars. Mars was obviously so good at it. Šeško isn't. He lets people get in there and get a little touch in, and get the ball away from him, which I think is something that he really struggles with. Which is something that we would have to improve, but it's something that he can improve because he has that level of being so tall and so big that I'm not really worried. And it's the same with your shooting in the box. Like, okay, he's not this snappy striker, but he can do the harder shots when he has more time to think and longer out. Then I'm thinking if you just let him get a bit more instinctual power in there, I think he'll be fine. And I think, like, obviously the price is quite expensive right now, but the whole idea, the main argument I've always had about Šeško over Gyökeres or Watkins or anyone else is that the striker market in the last 5 to 6 years, in my opinion, has been poor. I don't think it's been great. I mean, we've seen people like Osimhen want 400k a week and no one even sniff at it, even though he was one of the best strikers in the world. And I think that just shows that people maybe don't factor in that much, but I think ultimately strikers are probably used the least amount for tactical systems within a team out of anyone. I actually think goalkeepers, you could argue, and lots of teams are used a lot more. Depends obviously what team it is, but I think that if you buy a winger, they have to be a lot more involved in build up, like they have to inherently. I don't think a striker has to. Some teams would and we would, but it doesn't have to be like that. And I think when I look at the striker market, I'm like, if we sign a Gyökeres and he doesn't bang, in 2 years' time, where are we going to be at? We're going to have to buy another striker. If Watkins doesn't bang now, next season, we're going to be next year in a market again for another striker.
Yep.
We've been looking at the same targets, like Williams, like a Šeško, like a Barcoda, for the last 3 seasons for Arsenal. Since I started YouTube, I've spoke about the same 5 players over and over and over again. And this year, it's just been the links to the same players. So I think ultimately, like, in my opinion, that's one of the moves that you just have to get done because he is, in my opinion, the best talent on the market. And it obviously does fit our system and everything, but
yeah, I mean, it's really funny, isn't it? Because when you talk about it that way, it sounds so cut and dry. And I know there's a huge section of the fan base that will be going, no, not him. We need Gyökeres. And I've gone back and forth, and you can call me a flip-flop. You say I sit on the fence, whatever you want. But I think we know, I know better than anyone, I'm older than most of the people on YouTube, apparently. So over time, like, you realize your emotions play on so many of these decisions, and you got to try to take them out. But when I am watching our team and we are not shooting, it drives me nuts. I had to go through it with Wenger for years and years and years of, playing in and around the box and no one actually putting the foot through it and taking that chance. And sometimes I think it was Roy Keane who said, Man United's philosophy was taking chances and, making the difficult choices. It's so true. And when I look and I feel that we just need someone to make that kind of decisive, I don't know, just shot or opening. I think Gyökeres could be that person. His record is outstanding as well, not only for Sporting but also for Sweden. He is very, very good. He's physically imposing, which is really kind of different to Sesko in terms of he seems much more aware of his body. And I understand he's older, but he's definitely, I think he's what, 6'1", 6'2". Gyökeres, he's not a small guy, but he's so good at moving players off the ball, and he's a lot more like Miles you referenced in terms of being able to move and create space for himself. Even when he dribbles, it's almost like, pinball. He kind of bounces off people a lot of the time. And regardless of his dribbling technique, and it's not the most aesthetically pleasing, he's so good at being able to just brush off players. How well that translates to the Premier League, though, is a different matter. So I do understand when people are looking at Gyökeres and going, he's the one. And I've been saying it, like, just get him through the door at this point. Like, I think that's because I just crave a new striker. I'm not saying Kai has done a horrendous job, but for us to move on and up another level, I think we just need options. Sesko's probably the option that you can bring in and you can take time. You can play Kai and then you can play Sesko at other times and, in cup runs and things. And he can have a year to establish himself. And hopefully after another year, then you can have like a more guaranteed amount of goals. And you can look at him as the number one striker because, as you said again, for Leipzig, he's not really that lone striker and he's not playing centrally all the time. But if you buy Gyökeres, that is a statement of intent, and that's also a statement of he is going to be our number 9. I don't think you can buy him and then, keep him on the bench that often because I think the fans will turn, the media will say things. We already know the kind of narrative around our club, and it's bound to happen. If you get Gyökeres in and he doesn't start scoring, or if he's not playing, the media will be saying, oh, it's a bad choice, and oh, he's, not getting on with Arteta, and is this a rift between Berta because Berta wanted him and Arteta didn't? It creates a lot of different stories and a lot of different, arguments, and I think you could end up with another episode, I guess, with the Ryan Ramsdale problem that we had. And I could see that happening. And I think that's something that people aren't looking at enough. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant because we know how we're treated in the media. And that's just an unfortunate fact for us. Sorry, I know there's a bit of a delay for you as well here, mate.
Yeah. That's why it's to go silent. But yeah, I agree. Like, I think with Gyökeres, when I look at Gyökeres, I think I analyze a lot of players. I look at a lot of players all the time, and I genuinely can't think of a player I'm more confused about than Gyökeres in terms of his transition to the Premier League. And it's not just for us; it's for United as well. And I've spoke to a lot of other like analysts and people who watch football a lot about this, and they're like, "Yeah, I kind of like it's the same thing." Like, a lot of us just don't get how he's going to do because like you can look at his time in the championship. In my opinion, not really. I don't think you can look at it. It was years ago, and also I just like the league's very different. But like it's so hard to gauge. He has obviously scored an extremely incredible amount of goals. Most of his goals don't look the best. Some of them are going to be great because he just scores such a high volume of them. Some of them are going to look really good. He is a brilliant ball striker. A lot of teams need that, and having someone that is a good ball striker will score goals. I have no doubts about that, especially in Arsenal's system where I've seen a lot of people say that it doesn't really matter who Arsenal get because either of them will score because we create so many chances. And that is kind of how I believe. Like, I do believe that will happen. I think we'll create more chances with a Šeško. than a Gyökeres, but will probably convert more chances with a Gyökeres over the Šeško right now. So it kind of
That's a
depends
good
what you
point.
want in that. And I mean, it depends on like wingers as well and stuff in that argument. But I think with Gyökeres, it's just a weird guy. Like the things that he's really good at is dribbling. I don't like his dribbling. I don't think his dribbling will translate to the Prem. And that's something I'm quite bullish on. I think that's one thing I look at him and go, he won't be able to just bounce off players and just run through everyone in the Prem. Like he would just get taken out quite easily, I think. But that's fine. Put him further in towards the goal. He is quick going in behind if he has to. He doesn't do it a lot, really. He likes ball to feet, then going in behind, which is maybe another problem. It's also other players we're linked to who kind of do that. And I just look at him and I'm like, you will score goals for Arsenal. Is that going to be enough to us to win the league? And is it actually going to work with the players around us? Like, is an Odegaard? I think an Odegaard with a Gyökeres works, but is a Ethan going to work as well? Is a Havertz going to work as well? Is a Rodrigo or another winger we're looking at going to work like that? Like, I I find it hard to see that, and I get with the whole Sesko thing. It's like, well, he prefers a proper natural winger, not an inside forward, and I get that, but I do think he is so young where you can still develop him in different ways. He can
Yeah.
easily cover for people. His dribbling is going to be better than Gyökeres, and I think it is better than Gyökeres, even if the stats say it isn't. I think what I've seen from the eye test, he is just a much more comfortable player at dribbling. He just hasn't got that strength to just body players and go past them. But when it comes to actual dribbling, he's good. He's a little bit like Isak in that way, but Isak obviously has the strength to go with it. So I just think when I look at it, I think Gyökeres would make sense, and I think even the money now is quite expensive. I think it would be a cheaper deal than Šeško. That's fine, but he needs to do well now. And in my opinion, Gyökeres is a bigger risk than signing Šeško because Šeško is a player we can develop. And I've seen people say that, like, oh, Šeško only scored 10 goals. He got 13 in the Bundesliga last season. He's going to a harder league. But like I've mentioned multiple times, like we can't use the league comparisons as a place to judge players that much. Like we talk about Gyökeres and we don't know how he's going to convert. It's the same with Šeško. Like he's playing in an awful attacking system that made no sense. Like he's by himself. He's the unicorn asset, which everyone calls him. He was not getting used at all. And he was just not very, very viable. They would basically just use him sometimes to be that guy that heads the ball on to
Yeah.
someone else, and that's it sometimes. And it's like we already have Havertz who does that. We wouldn't need Šeško to do that. He should be the one that runs in behind. Okay, sometimes he can do it, and come deeper. But that's the fun thing about having a Šeško. He gives us options. If he worked with someone like Havertz, it may be a 4-2-2-2 as a box formation, which has been going on about. I think that could work really well, then working off each other if he has to. And Havertz can kind of play as an attacking midfielder, not really like a striker, but they can press together so he can get help in the off the ball areas. But then on the ball, he gets more as a proper striker role. And naturally, he is much better in the air. And I think that is something that drives me a lot in this argument. Like Gyökeres is awful in the air. I think he scored something like 2 headed goals in the last, like, out of his 100 goals, there's like 2 headers in there. And you've got to think, like, in the Portuguese league, it should be a bit easier to get that space as well. Obviously, it depends how Sporting play. They don't really play like that too much. But it's obviously a way they've identified he's not good in the air, and he isn't great in the air. He just doesn't jump very high. He's more of a boot to feet sort of player. He's not got his jetpacks on. He's not jumping up there. He's kind of just sitting on the floor. There's a bit of COD references there, but
Yeah,
like when
I
I
got
think
it.
when I think about like Šeško, I'm like, yes, he isn't great in the air physically, but he has jumped so high and he's 6'6". Like if Saka crosses the ball in like 8 times a game to him, he's better than Havertz, better than Rice in them areas. Just get him in. And also, yeah, like he's young, he's gonna have to be given time, but he can be on the bench. Like he doesn't have to start. I think Havertz is good. I know a lot of people don't, but I think he's still all right. And I think like that forces us into making a proper left winger signing as
Yeah,
well. And I
yeah.
think I kind of like that a bit more. I think the winger might arguably be a bit more important.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I can't wait to the end of the transfer window just to see the business that we've done and how it joins up, and if it is joined up thinking or if it's just us basically going for who we think is the best player or what's the best deal in the market. It's going to be really, really interesting. I think it will speak a lot about Berta and the control he's got and the way he wants to move the club forward. It's really interesting. It's really exciting this summer. It's really nice to have a look. I'm kind of looking at their stats right now, and it's so hard to compare, obviously, because of the different leagues and almost their roles within these teams with Gyökeres and Sesko. I think the only real takeaways you can take from looking at the stats. So if any of you want to go on FBref and start comparing, like by all means do, but just keep it in mind that a lot of them are skewed. So looking at the passing stats, it essentially shows that Gyökeres is got, higher volume. However, when you start to break it down, you realise that he's got a lot of dead ball passing. The same with I don't know, shots. It's really difficult to tell. He gets a lot more space. He's able to kind of drift into positions that he wants to, Gyökeres, whereas Sesko plays a more facilitative role. The only thing I would say is that most likely he would be taking more shots, Gyökeres. He seems to have that idea. He's a shoot first kind of player. Whereas Sesko, he's more of a player that wants to make the right decision. So he's not going to look and think, But at the same time, sometimes he does have these speculative shots. He's had some amazing shots from long distance, shots that I wouldn't really imagine an Arteta mold player taking on. But regardless, if we can get one of them in, it's going to improve our squad and it will improve our team and it'll give us some different looks, which is something that we've known Arteta to do for a long time. Like, he's very, very good at giving us different kind of options and different ways of playing. And I can't wait. What's the kind of highest price you pay for both? Because I think we're both in agreement right now. I think we're both angling towards Sesko. It would be the more sensible kind of transfer, I guess. But if you were going out for Gyökeres right now, how much would you pay? And how much would you pay for Sesko, mate?
I think I'd probably pay around 60, 65 mil pounds maybe for Gyökeres. That'd probably be the most I'd pay. Depends. If it's like a couple of mil, I'm not going to cry about it. If it's a couple of add-ons, I'm also just like, it is what it is. I think paying more for Šeško does make sense. I know people are going to be like, well, look at the goals and everything, but ultimately the market is driven by age more than anything, and it always has been. And that is a key factor, especially in a key position like a striker. I think if you're paying anywhere in the amount that Isak went to Newcastle for, so say 70 million pounds, maybe a bit more in add-ons if you have to with the inflation, 70, 80 mil, let's say, for Šeško. I think that's fine. Like, I think that's absolutely fine to pay that, given that is the striker market. That has always been the striker market. And I think that will be the striker market, especially with the least limited options. Like, Ekatike is probably going to be around the same price, even. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Osimhen, but I've heard Napoli now want again 60 million with the wages upon that. Like, every single striker costs that much more because it is just hard to get a striker that is that good. And I just think Šeško has the ability to do it. And people always complain about Arsenal not buying Isak when he was at Sociedad. I didn't really, because I thought the price was expensive. But we complain about not getting market opportunities like a Bruno Guimaraes for 40 mil when he went to Newcastle, or a Kudus for 35 mil when he went to West Ham. Like, sometimes you just have to pay this amount of money to get these players in, and then they're going to be worth more in the future. And I know it doesn't matter how much they're worth in the future to Arsenal, because we're buying Sesko to be our striker for a long time. But ultimately, like, I think Arteta can turn him into an incredible player. And it's genuinely the biggest worries I have about Sesko is just about kind of the mental side of it. And it's just because he's a bit hesitant. He's a bit hesitant to do things. He's hesitant to make runs. He's hesitant to have shots. But that is something that can be taught. He's got the natural platform level of ability where he is so good at football. It's just about getting your mental right. This is when you need to shoot. This is when you need to pass. And when these like options around him become a lot more easier, a lot more systematic. Like, he knows that player's going to run there, that player's going to run there. He will become a much better player, I think. And I do think at Arsenal, for his sake, I respected the decision he had last year to stay another year at Leipzig. And I think he has developed a little bit, maybe not as much as some people would want. But ultimately, I think that's a Leipzig problem because of their team. And I think he should leave to develop even more. It's the same argument about Nusa. Nusa needs to play more for Leipzig before he really gets that big move away. But I'm looking at how Leipzig play, especially last season. I know they're in talks with a new manager, so hopefully he makes them a bit better. But like, if they play the same way they did last year, Nusa needs to leave because he's not improving. And it's the same with Xavi Simons. Like, Xavi Simons is a good player, and I love Xavi Simons. I love him at Arsenal, but he didn't have the most insane season last year. He had a much better season the year before when Leipzig are good. Leipzig have just tanked everyone in their team. So if I'm there, get out.
Yeah, I completely
That's
agree.
what I say.
I guess before we move on away from these two guys, I want to throw someone else in here. Ollie Watkins. I mean, Ollie Watkins is obviously like a win now player, simply because of his age. He's someone you can't wait on. You can't be going, okay, well, we'll wait, 3 years, because by that time he's going to be retiring. But what would be like the highest price you pay for Watkins? Because for me, he'd be the lowest one down on the list. I know talking to other people, they kind of see him as number one, even someone that's Premier League proven, someone who's scored a lot of goals in the Premier League, someone that's able to shoot from wide spaces. Like, I don't know. I'm not keen on him unless he's the third attacker we get in. If we were getting him in through the door, what's kind of the highest bracket you'd be paying for Ollie Watkins?
It's got to be like 30, 35 mil, maybe a little bit more of add-ons. I think that is, if that is the price point that they would want for him, I would consider it as the third attacker, even though I would personally want a more versatile option as a third attacker. But a lot of them seem to be way more expensive than I once thought. So maybe that is the option. I don't hate a Watkins with a Šeško. Obviously, getting Watkins and Gyökeres, in my opinion, makes no sense. It has to be a Šeško with a Watkins, or just Šeško, or just Gyökeres. I don't see a Watkins by himself. I don't see Watkins being with a Gyökeres. I just don't really think it makes much sense. And I find it unlikely, given we would buy another striker, considering Jesus is still here, as much as he's not really considered. He's not going to play until half the year. Havertz, where else is he going to fit in? I feel like he could fit in attacking midfield if we play a proper attacking midfielder. But obviously, we still got Odegaard, still got Waderi there. So I think Havertz will still be a kind of striker rotational option.
Yeah.
So when I look at that stuff, I'm like, where is he actually going to, where is these players going to get time? Is that going to delay even more progression from Šeško if he's not getting enough game time? Maybe. And I do kind of think that. I think Watkins, as like, I think Watkins in certain games would be such a great option for us, because he is a good player at running in behind. Like, he is aggressive at running in behind all times. His timings are really good. He's a great presser off the ball. He's always been a brilliant presser. Even when he was at like Exeter, he was a great presser. And it was something I always cared about him for him. So I do think that is like him in, if we Arsenal had to play this box formation and we had to have Rice a bit deeper with a Zubamendi, Watkins actually does make sense in that way, because he can press really well with a Havertz or an Odegaard. But then if you have Havertz and Odegaard, like, do you need another presser? Like, I don't know. It depends. There's a lot of players. I like Watkins. I think if the price point is 30 to 35 mil, it should definitely be considered. But that should only be like, if Villa actually really need money and they're like, we need to get rid of him, you can have him. I wouldn't be against that, but it's just one of them signings where I talk about Eze a lot, and I love Eze at the club, but it's like, where does he fit in? We've got so many midfielders at the moment. Like, it's the same I talk about like Xavi Simons. I'd love a Xavi Simons, but where does he fit in? We've got people don't even talk about Marino. Like, we've got so many left centre mid options and midfielders and then players the positions. Maybe, like, when people are talking about Yoro Hato in defence, and I'm like, well, if Yoro Hato goes in defence, then Miles is probably going to be the backup left centre mid. But we've still got Marino, we've still got Vieira still there, we've still got Rice, we've got Havertz. Like, it's like, where do these players fit in? Like, I find it hard to figure out a play.
Yeah, I want to just quickly mention as well, it was you who said it on this show, actually, about if we got, say, an Mbeumo in and then a Watkins and a Rodrigo or whoever it may be out on the left, that I would kind of understand again, but it's not the optimal transfer for me anyway. And he does, I don't question it, he does improve our squad. But again, how does it affect the squad, the makeup of it? How does it affect time for players? I mean, there's a lot of questions. I just want to run over as well. So this season, Gyökeres 39 goals, Benjamin Sesko 13, Ollie Watkins 16. In terms of shots, so this is insane. Shots, Gyökeres 127 shots. So that works out as, what are we looking at? 4.07 per 90. Whereas Sesko and Watkins have 66 shots or 82 shots, and per 90, that's about 2.5 to 2.8 for them. Gyökeres being the 4 well, over 4 shots per 90, which is insane. That's insane. But yeah, I guess we're saying you're the same as me, Sesko, Gyökeres, then Watkins below.
Yeah, I think so. I think as well, like the it's not even about quality. Like I think Watkins probably is the better one out of them all, but Watkins is coming off a quite poor season for Aston Villa. People will say it was all right. As somebody who watches Villa quite a lot, I don't think it was all right. I think he was quite poor. I think his finishing as well, which is something that people give Watkins a lot of praise for, was really bad this season. He was really off his time, and there's a reason why he got dropped. It isn't just tactics that Rashford played up front for a lot of it. He was just kind of poor for a lot of the season, and I think like fundamentally, I'm a project guy, and I get there's a certain point where the project needs win now players. But I think it is detrimental to the project of all these years buying all these younger players to just buy a 29-year-old striker who we hope gets us that title. And if he doesn't, we're going to be in a worse situation next year. Like it's not good for the long term at all, I don't think.
Yeah, completely agree. Right, let's go on to wingers. Oh, Rodrigo and Nico Williams, I think, for this little battle. Rodrigo's obviously the bigger profile, the more recent one that's been linked to the club. Sounds ironically probably more likely, which is pretty insane to say. And then Nico Williams, the one that's been a long-term project. Arteta's a big admirer of the player. He was linked to us in previous windows. He then had that huge summer with Spain. Hasn't really hit the height since then. But then if you're looking stats-wise, they haven't really been that prolific, both of them. So I could be wrong here, but what I've got written down, Rodrigo 6 goals, 5 assists. Nico Williams 5 goals, 5 assists. Now, I will put a little caveat with that. Nico Williams is playing in a lesser team, but he is playing his preferred position. Rodrigo is playing in a far better team, but he has to play a more facilitative role, and he's definitely not playing on his preferred side. We know that he likes to come on the left. He's having to play out of position with Vinicius out on the left. Sorry, I couldn't get my words out. And then Mbappe coming in as well. Like the poor guy, like the kid has no chance of going on the left-hand side at Real Madrid, let's be honest. Especially the makeup of how they choose their team. They just basically go on names a lot of the time. But should we go through Rodrigo first? He's been the kind of the bigger talk through Arsenal fans. Thoughts on him, mate?
Well, yeah. So Rodrigo is a player that I have definitely a little bit gone back and forth on because it's a very delicate situation where maybe the market is making my opinions about a player better or worse. Like maybe I don't think he's the best shout, but given the market, it makes more sense. And I was looking at like, well, I originally did a video about how I don't think he's the best player for Arsenal to sign because he is an inside forward. He barely ever goes on the outside. Like TM Talks Balls on Twitter, who's like a guy I know. He basically went through all of the times, and he only went on the outside, on the left-hand side, like twice. Obviously, he doesn't play on the left mostly, so he plays on the right. But still, he is much more, and on the right, he is much more likely to go on the outside. But obviously, that makes sense given like the foot he is.
Yeah.
So, like, he is an inside forward. He likes getting shots in like in them sort of areas. He is better from outside the box than someone like Martinelli is at crossing and shooting. But the problem I have with him is like I just felt like who's going to create that width? We need someone to create that width. A little bit like we talk about City, and City have like an inverting fullback run into that middle, like an Out-Nori potentially, which is fine for them because they have like a Doku who can be out wider. But we have a Miles who runs into them channels, or even a Calafiori. We don't really have that overlapping one. So we don't really have, if Rodrigo's in the same areas, I just think it causes some problems. Now, Calafiori can do it. I do think he can just be a bit more of a natural overlap, and we can just shove him out there a bit more as he does create chaos. Do you think that limits him in some of the ways that you would want him to create chaos in the final third and just go where he wants? Also think his injury problems and him even being fit all the time. And is he better than Miles at other things? Probably not. So it's a little bit of a risk to play him in certain games. Um, I think given the situation with Rodrigo, it's weird because I think given where the market is at, he is actually the best option because he is undeniable quality. Now, his goals and his assist tallies have never been impressive. They've never been like incredible. They've never been anywhere near like someone like Vinny Jr., for example. I think last year is a bit of a hard thing to look at because when I look at like Real Madrid and how they played last year, like we mentioned before, but they were playing very much. He's a much more defensive player, more touches in the defensive areas than ever before. I think he had over 100 more touches in the final in his defensive third, and then he had over 100, nearly over 100 less touches in the final third to the season before last. So he was clearly becoming much more of a facilitator with Mbappe coming in and Mbappe running the channels a little bit more. So Rodrigo didn't have to run in behind, even though he isn't overly a player that does that, which is also something that concerns me. But he is quality, and I do think as well he is someone that has, like we talk about the mental side, but he's proven he works incredibly hard. He always does
Yeah.
off the ball. He's always tried in every tactical system that any manager's put him in. He will always try his best. He is a player that cares about the team more than himself. He will help the team out if he needs to. So if he needs to platform someone like Saka and Rodrigo needs to do the defensive work, he will do that. He is happy to help out. Not the best player, but I do think we would make it a lot easier than Madrid because we're used to doing it a bit more. And I do love like his dribbling is incredible and pace as well. We need fast players and we need good dribblers. And he is that his best things that he has is dribbling and pace. And I do like his overall like ability to shoot. His ball striking is very good, even if he doesn't score a lot of goals. I think he is actually a good ball striker. He just doesn't get a lot of shots away. I would like a little bit more from him. I think given the market, obviously we don't know. This winger market is very, very tough because it looks like Nico Williams wants to go to Barcelona. And he wanted 20 million euros a year from Bayern Munich and Arsenal, but only wants 12 million a year from Barcelona. That's how much he wants to go there. So just let him go there. Like I've said this for what, like if he wants so much money, I'm not for it. And then I look at other options, and I'm like, Bayern will probably get someone like Leao then if they don't get a Williams, which I think makes more sense for them, given their league. And I don't think it does make as much sense for us. And then I look at the other options for us, and I'm like, we have to pay 75 mil for maybe a Semenyo,
Yeah.
70 mil for these other options. Maybe a 70 mil for Rodrigo is the best, but it's difficult because we don't even know if he's going to leave yet. He's going to decide after the Club World Cup, but I assume that like Xabi Alonso is going to be honest with him and be like, well, we've literally just signed another right winger, midfielder typey player, and you are never going to play on that left with Vinny and Mbappe in the squad, which he never is. So I mean, if he's honest, he would leave. But I do think for Arsenal, if we were to get him, he would have to play more centrally, which I don't know how it works. Do we play? Everyone memes me about it, but I always go on about box midfields. I love talking about. I literally my last like 4 videos I talk about box midfields, but like when he's inside the channel, he could easily play as like a two up front with a Havertz or a Sheshko. Maybe not a Sheshko, but maybe a Havertz would work. Maybe a Sheshko could work actually if Sheshko runs in behind. But he could play as a box midfielder because I do think he's a fine presser. He's not brilliant. I think he's fine. And at least he's going to pick the receive the ball in central areas where he can run. He could even play as a left centre mid in some games if we needed him to. I don't think that would happen, but it'd be a suggestion. I just find as a winger, if we want to get him to be the best, he needs to be closer to the goal,
Yeah.
which is the whole issue with struggle with Martinelli. And like it's weird. I think the system would have to change, but undeniable quality is there, I'd say.
I think he's a player that almost will demand Arteta to change the system. I don't think Martinelli is a big enough profile, or it sounds harsh, but good enough for Arteta to kind of change his philosophy and change how we're playing. Whereas Rodrigo, when you're paying that much money and he comes with that name, he undeniably as well has, world-class talents. So like his passing numbers, I want to say he's like 99th percentile against forwards. He's like 98th percentile or something against attacking midfielders or wingers. Like he's very good at retaining the ball as well, and that kind of goes missing sometimes. So he's got some really, really good attributes, and I think Arteta might look at it and go, okay, if we want him in the areas where he's going to do most damage and do his best work, then we might have to change the system. Having said that, I think he is capable of playing as a touchline winger. I think he can do it, and he's young enough to make changes to his game. Nico Williams, however, he's the most obvious answer. If you want someone to hug the touchline, you want them to run along the wing, I think Nico Williams he's almost like Martinelli on steroids in some respects. If you're looking at physical attributes, pace, putting the ball in from wide spaces, like I think Nico Williams is really good at that. He can play both wings as well, which is really nice about these players, that you're looking at two players that can play both right side and left side. They're not just one, and we know that that goes really well with what Arteta wants. But for me, I think Rodrigo really is the move that you make, not just for the name, but the wages, the price that you're looking at. It's just so frustrating that the striker market and the winger market, there's a lot of players that could absolutely bang and do amazing. But on the flip side, a lot of them might not ever get to the heights that you really want them to. None of them are sure bets. It's not like, and it frustrates me so much when people look at like the Haaland deal and they look at, oh, they only paid, what was it? Was it like 50 mil, 30 mil? I can't even remember. It was outrageously good price. But then you forget the 550 grand a week he's on. Nico Williams, the wages he's talking about are astronomical for what he's really done at club level. I think Rodrigo, you can justify that a little bit better. I think Rodrigo's a player as well, Champions League level. He turns up, probably the player you go for, but maybe it affects what we do long
Yeah.
term in the market and long term for the makeup of our squad.
Yeah, yeah, I do agree. Yeah, I think when I think about Rodrigo, I sometimes just think like I am complicating things a little bit with his role and where he is going to be. He isn't a bad player at carrying the ball from deeper, especially like out wide. He's fine, and sometimes all Arsenal need is more balance within the team. And I do think that will happen with Zubimendi. I'm hoping, obviously, like a Sheshko would, I think, would help a lot of the balance. Even a Yokrez, I think, would. And I do think sometimes Arsenal need a left winger who we know is an incredible dribbler and can take players away from others. And the problem is we've never really had that on this left side. Trossard and Martinelli are fine; they are fine, but they're not players that can be counted on when it matters. And Saka has had to do a lot of the heavy lifting over that right hand side over the last 3 to 4 years. And I think Rodrigo comes in, he brings that sort of level where we can like at least have a bit more of a balanced team. He will bring players over to that left hand side and can dribble past them, even from deeper areas if he has to. And when I look at him as well, I think like there is a romanticism of sometimes these signings, but it is as a player, he's obviously not like Sanchez, and Sanchez was insane at Barcelona. Like I'm not like the level that Sanchez was at Barcelona was incredible. No one ever cared about him, but he was just insane. He scored like 27 goals as last season there, but obviously Rodrigo, when I look at him, he's never going to get the heights that he's had at Real Madrid. He's won everything at that club. He's never going to be played in his actual left wing position anymore, which he is much better in. And I do think as soon as you see him even at the left at Arsenal, you'll start to see him much more comfortable because on the right he isn't, even if he is okay on the right. And I've said this for years. And I look at him and I think your dribbling level is great. He's not physical, but he's good at creating such separation that it doesn't really matter. And he's always been great in big games. Like he's not someone that has really been awful in these big games, like even recently. So it's not something I worry about at all. He is a star player. He is that sort of front line attack that we need, I think. And although, yes, there might be questions, is he a big crosser? Like, not entirely. Does he go on the outside? No. Is there ways that we can make that easier for him? Yes, we can have like a left centre mid. Maybe Rice goes out wide a little bit
Mhm.
more. I, I like Rice box crushing. I don't mind it, and I think sometimes it's a really good asset. But I wouldn't also mind him going out wide as well. He's a good crosser. I don't really. I know he's tall, but like sometimes maybe even being out there creates that little bit of space for Rodrigo to come in the inside, and even a Sheshko I think actually will make runs because I was watching loads of tapes of Rodrigo when he was playing on the left. And what something that they did a lot when it was him and Vinny was that when he'd receive on the left, Vinny would instantly just make a run across him. So he would have that space on the inside, even if Vinny's not even trying to get the ball. And I was like, Vinny's not even like he's like the other winger, or he's playing in the center at that point. And I was like, we could do that with a Sheshko, like
Yeah.
sometimes if we needed to create that space for Rodrigo or Havertz. Havertz, I know he's more catered to the right side, but Marino would love going to the left, but we can get Havertz to go to the left if he has to. And I think there's ways that ultimately I don't think Martin. I think Martinelli in the current system is not used to his best abilities, but fundamentally he is still not that reliable. He has one or two chances a game that are one on ones. He's a pretty poor shooter. I think he's pretty predictable. He telegraphs his moves quite easily, which is something I hate. His dribbling, obviously, we criticised it a lot with how he looks down and it's just not very good. And he's not very able to adapt to changes. If someone moves a direction quickly, he can't really adapt quick enough. But like compared to Rodrigo, he has all of that things. And I think even in the current setup, Rodrigo would be a massive upgrade on a Martinelli. And he is just like, out of all the wingers on the market, he is probably the one I have the least worries about. Like, I think Williams is a better systemal fit for us, and he's way
Yep,
better for Sheshko.
definitely.
But I still have worries if he's going to be effective over a long period of time, especially because he's had his second worst season this year in the underlying numbers, which I've heard about with all of his stats. So I do think that that is something to think about. But I don't. Rodrigo is a fun player, and I do think he would really come to Arsenal and live it up. I think he'd get along with the team. Obviously, I mean, pretty much every player we're signing is even Brazilian or Spanish at this point. So we're going to have a full team soon, so everyone will get along. But I think when I look at Rodrigo, I look at him and go like, he is so good. I think that I would be willing to take the risk on him. I think now.
Yeah. I feel like the Brazilian players need to do, like a Cesc Fabregas or something, and just put an Arsenal shirt on him the next time they're out there. But I don't know. I think Williams. We've both said it now. He is the more natural fit. Is he the right choice? I don't think he is, which is really bizarre, isn't it? Because we've just talked about Sesko being the more natural fit and the player we should probably go for, but I just look at the wages, his kind of history, club level. He's more of a purple patch player. He's very similar to Martinelli in a lot of those respects, and I feel that is he that much of an upgrade on Martinelli that you want to then go spending silly amounts on his wages? And if he doesn't do well, and he doesn't progress, and it doesn't translate to our team, then you're stuck with another player on extremely high wages that, what do you do with him then? Um, I don't know. I think even like Bradley Barcola, Antoine Semenyo could be a better buy than a Nico Williams, just simply because they're slightly different players and they would give you different things. The fees, has Nico Williams still got his transfer release clause? I know, like previously it was around 40 million, wasn't it? But I don't know if that's
Yeah,
still open, which does kind of change
it's
the
like
context of the deal. But
50, 58 mil or something.
okay, so it's not
50,
as low
58
as I
million
thought.
euros or something like that.
Aye,
But I
yep,
do think with like, yeah, yeah. I think with some players, it's like I think with what we're saying actually kind of makes sense. So like I think even a Barcola, which doesn't look likely because apparently PSG are trying to sign him on a new deal and don't want him to leave, even if he's not a starter. And Semedo, they want crazy money for. So this is why, like, I kind of have my opinion of Rodrigo. Is Rodrigo the perfect player I'd want ever? No. But who else is there better than him? Like Williams is the better fit for the system. But like we said, Sheshko is the better fit for the system over Gyökeres. And I'm pretty happy with getting one player that's a better fit for the system and one like
agreed.
natural talent now that can come in. And I'm perfectly fine. That's why I'm kind of fine with us to sign a Sheshko if we get a Rodrigo. They're not going to work brilliantly together. I think there's ways that they can do it, and especially with how young Sheshko is, he can develop. It's not that deep in my opinion. But I also just think this will like an attack of Sheshko in the future, Rodrigo and Saka is an elite attack line that gives us balance on all fronts. And I look at Rodrigo, it's another one of them players where I'm like, I look at his stats and I go, they're not the greatest, but I watch him and go, there is so much in this player that it's just not being exerted from how Real Madrid play, and also how much they care because of the players around him. Makes sense. Vinny's the more talented, Mbappe is as well, so you want to care about them. Before Arsenal, he's not going to be in that situation. He's going to be able to be one of the main men, if anything. And like, does that mean we need to sign another left back? Does that mean that we need to sign another midfielder? Maybe that is the sort of situations we have to do to make him happy. But we talk about talent, and sometimes like I'm happy with getting Šeško in as a project player, but has a good amount of talent now. Rodrigo has talent. He's the best winger on the market, in my opinion. If Nico Williams is going to go to Barcelona, if Leao is going to go to Bayern, the other options are who? Like Semenyo, Matoma. Like these
Yeah.
players that are older or just not like as good, in my opinion. And Rodrigo is at that level. He has played at that level. There's a reason why he's been starting for the biggest team in the world, even on the wrong side for many years, winning Champions Leagues, which is another thing we need. We need experience. We need leaders in there, and I'm sure he will stand up. And I don't know, Agent Gabriel has been. It needs to get him in. We need another Brazilian. I would. I, we just need. We just hope. Hopefully, he says to Xabi Alonso says to him, "You're not going to play." And the Mastantuano, like he's just joined Real Madrid today. They confirmed it. That is a great news for us because he is a player that will play on that right side. Which I know Rodrigo wants to play on the left, but there was always an option there to play on the right. And it's been quite known that Xabi Alonso loves Gula as well.
Yep.
And in my opinion, like he's not even going to get game time on the right, and he shouldn't get game time on the right. He should be on the left. He's never going to get game time on the left. So he should leave for the sake of his career. Real Madrid should get good money for him, and he should come. Well, he's like 25. Like come and be like one of the main men at Arsenal. I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I really like the idea of that. At some point to the game, Saka and Rodrigo could swap flanks. I don't think for long periods, but there's something that's maybe overlooked a little bit and a bigger picture. Like when sometimes, like Cucurella, as much as I don't like the guy, he seems to have like relatively good games against Saka. There's always good battle. He doesn't really best him, but at the same time, I don't think Saka really always has the upper hand. And just in certain moments, then you can just go, okay, let's switch flanks. Rodrigo, see what you can do. See how you play against them, and Saka, see if you can have some more joy down the left-hand flank now. And maybe now, I think because I'm not suggesting Saka starts on the left, but I think if you have a 10-minute spell, City used to do this with Sterling and Sane quite a lot, and get them to switch flanks. I think Saka on the left would go on the outside. I think he would be crossing from wide spaces and stuff, and it just gives a little bit of a different dimension. It also means we can rest Saka at points, knowing that we have like a really, really good player out on that right-hand side that understands the role, is able to do things in a similar fashion to Saka. I just think, it opens up a lot of options. It's not the perfect market opportunity, but like you say, when you've got a player that good that has played for a team right at the top of football, I think it's a no-brainer. I really do, and it's something that the fans are going to get behind. If he comes through the door, there's not going to be many fans that are angry or annoyed or asking for more. I think most people will say fair play. They'll get Arteta will have people off his back. He's finally got an attacker through the door, and I think Berta has set his stall out and said, look, I've done as much as I can for the club. It's over to you now on the pitch. So all parties, I think it works quite well. It's quite a nice deal. We've got a little a comment here. Let's see what you think of this, Reece, a minute. So we've got Moss Spots World, who says, you've mentioned the best fit. An English Gooners always laugh, but Thierry Henry approved, and best free agent striker available by far in Longwell is a Canadian Gooner, Jonathan David. Go on. Jonathan David, do we get him in?
Oh my god!
Third striker. I mean, I don't mind him as a third attacker, but
he would never get. I don't know, man. Like I don't know, man. I don't think he's. I genuinely think he is not a player that would thrive in the Premier League. Not even just for Arsenal. I just think his attributes that he is really good at. He's basically like a fox in the box. He's very alert in the box. I mean, that's a bit unfair. He is actually a very good link-up player as well. Like he can play deeper, but I feel like that would be neglected a little bit in the Prem because he isn't physical, he isn't overly fast, but he is two-footed. He is two-footed, which is makes his finishing really unique because every time any chance is in the box, he's just so quick to use either foot to get in. I think the reported price is that you have to pay 35 million euros for the agent fees and the market opportunity overall, which makes that not like a cheap deal in the end. I feel like I don't know. I want to see him at like a Napoli or somewhere and be like, oh, okay, then I see it because I just worry. like I've seen a lot of people say the kind of same similarities to Lacazette. Lacazette was never a bad player at Arsenal, especially when he first joined in. His
A
last couple
player
of
of the
years were
season
not
1 year.
great. Yeah, his second year, I think. And that was mostly because Lacazette was that really good link-up player, which we're talking about. I don't think he was overly ever a great goal scorer for Arsenal. He scored some good goals, but he was mostly that guy that was really like linking it all together, which I think David can be great at. But Lacazette wasn't an overly fast player, and he wasn't an overly strong player. And at the time, obviously, I was really young, so I didn't really like look into things like that. But like looking at it in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I can see why he wasn't as good as some people maybe thought out to be, because sometimes when you just don't have these like natural abilities, it's hard in the Prem. I don't think he's a bad player at all, but it's just for like if we're talking about Watkins as a third striker or
I'm just
David,
about
I
to say the
think
same.
David's definitely more versatile. And he's actually not the worst off the ball. He's not that bad at all. But I think for how we play, it makes more sense for Watkins. But I mean, I want to see David go to a team and succeed, because he is actually quite underrated, I think. But I also do think he's a bit of a weird striker. But 2-footed is fun. Any player that's 2-footed is fun, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it just worries me in terms of like stats wise, and I know it's not always stats based. He's obviously been a player that, you know, people have talked about for a long time. He's done very well in his career, and I don't know if he's ever going to get to the heights that people originally thought he would. Like non-pen XG is 58th percentile, so 0.37 per 90. Non-pen goals, so 63rd percentile. He doesn't really come out glowing in any kind of respect. I guess the one would be his pass completion rate, so 82.6%. So quite a lot of the time, like he is good in build up, like you mentioned, like a Lacazette type player. But what worries me is if we are talking about us being in the semi-finals of the Champions League, we're being second yet again in the league. If we want to get across the line, I think it has to be a player that we're like much more convinced about. And for me personally, I just think, is he the player that I could, put my, set my stall out and really hang my chances on? I don't know. I also don't know if like publicity wise, and I know this is like a crazy thing to say because what the results on the pitch are the most important thing. However, if we went out and got Jonathan David, I don't know what kind of message that sends out to the club and what message that sends to the other players in the squad as well. I think like a Saliba, a Saka will be looking and thinking, right, are we actually serious? Are we going to be trying, our hardest to win these titles? And I think it's only so long that you can get away with not buying players or buying players of a certain standard. We haven't bought attackers. We just haven't bought attackers. And when we have, they're always a plan B. I think we have to go and get players that we really, really want. The right profile, the right player, and just get those deals done. But Moss Sports, thank you so much for the comment. Like I genuinely really appreciate that. It's so good to bring up players because it's not a player I really had on my radar for this summer. I'll be honest with you, but it's really good to have that one. Another one, I am going to put this up because Stig is always in the chat. He's always putting up some comments as well. Thank you, Stig. So between Barcola and Rodrigo, which of them needs the least of audition signing or support to function best? Ooh. I would say, for me, I guess Barcola needs the less support in signings. I think Rodrigo, yeah, I think he's the more natural, like touchline winger and someone that would come in our system. But I mean, Barcola is such an interesting player. Like, I love watching Barcola. Like, he's one of my favorite players to watch. He's just, like highlight central. He's so good. Yeah, if we got in a Barcola, how do you think it changes the system, mate? Sorry, I know there's a delay again.
Barcola is a weird one because obviously I think how we I think we currently play Barcola. I think Barcola would play quite well with how we play. Like, I think he would be able to get a lot of space, especially with this sort of island play that we used to do, especially with us so aggressive on the right hand side, which does kind of worry me because again, like one of the major points has kind of been a little bit more balanced. But Barcola is a great player at running in behind, which we don't have. And I think with Sheshka, that would work a lot better. He is incredibly fast. His shot selection, by the way, is just amazing. Like, when I look at his shot selection and where he takes shots and where he get the areas he gets into to shoot and he scores and creates chances is like elite. Like he gets right where you would want him to in the key areas, and it's just so effective in them areas. He is very much like he will wait until he has the area to shoot, and it usually is a good one. He's actually got a really good shot as well on him, which isn't just certified of just cutting in and scoring. He does a lot of other things. So I think that level there is incredible. I think when I look at a dribbler, he is a much better dribbler in space. I think
Yep.
I don't know how much would get that. I think well, there's arguments that we have had that quite a lot, especially on the counter attack. And Barcola is incredibly quick, so he can get up the field very quickly compared to someone like Rodrigo, who is fast but not as fast. I think Barcola would be a better fit tactically for our team. I also think he would have less time. I think it would just make more sense. I actually don't. Maybe you'd have to sign maybe a midfielder to work with Barcola, but I don't think he would need like this other player to come in. I think you could just get a Barcola by himself, but he wouldn't be at the necessarily refined level of Rodrigo. Rodrigo tactical might not be the best, might need another player to make him the best he can be, but I think Rodrigo will bring a lot of ability straight off the bat. And I think Barcola is really good, but he's still a purple patch player. He's still super young, still takes his time in certain aspects. He's not necessarily refined. Um, and it's tight areas as well. He worries me a little bit, but he is physically really big. He really reminds me of Rafael Leao, like when he runs with
Mm.
the ball, like just this power runner, could just deck anyone in front of him, and I love it. I love players like that. Um, that's why like Barcola definitely. I apparently it's not likely he's going to leave PSG. Unfortunately, they did win the Champions League. I guess that's what happened. Even if he isn't going to be a starter, but Barcola, like yeah, this is the thing. I've said this all the times, if we don't get Rodrigo, if Rodrigo says he wants to stay, then we have to, in my opinion, we have to go all out for Barcola because I think he's
Who
the best option there
who's
as
got
well.
the highest ceiling? Do you think Barcola or Rodrigo? Because I know Rodrigo's probably got the higher profile right now. I do think Barcola's ceiling is so high. I mean, PSG have got an embarrassment of riches, really, haven't they? With like young players able to play across the front line. You look at Kvaratskhelia, Doué, Barcola. Like, there's, I would love to take any of those players, but for you, which one do you think kind of has got the highest ceiling, especially in the Premier League? If they were to come across, who do you think would be able to kind of get to the highest heights?
I think Barcola, given the profile that he is actually it's not like a unique profile ever, but I think right now there's not a lot of wingers that are very like effective at what he does a lot the best compared to a Rodrigo type who is an inside forward. There's many inside forwards who are very good in Europe. Someone like Lookman, for example,
Mhm.
is like that as well. Um, so I think like given the seeding, it would probably have to be Barcola. He is also a lot younger. I think he's like 4 years younger than Rodrigo, 3 or 4 years, which is like a big lot in football because that is a especially at the ages of like 20 to 24. That sort of age is a very big gap in terms of development. So I do think that that does help because it's a bit more like we know where Rodrigo's heights are, kind of like he could reach even more and get better, but you can kind of see the level that he could get to because of his age. But with Barcola, it's like it's still kind of unknown. He could still get really high. I think Barcola probably has the bigger the ceiling, the higher ceiling. I think he has got that level. I think Barcola in the future might leave. It's hard, obviously, because he is French. He plays for PSG, biggest club in France. And I still think he isn't as good as Rodrigo right now. I think that's given the age. I think his consistency has problems, and sometimes his like in duels, he's not necessarily like assertive all the time, which does worry me. Um, but with how football's moving in transitional based football, especially in the Premier League, Barcola obviously would be a player that you would look at as a very high player on your list as like a transitional based beast in that way. And I do think he is a good player. Like I definitely think he should be considered.
I think he's. I mean, his ceiling is incredibly high, but at the same time, I think if we did get him in the door, he would frustrate a lot of the people because he would come he would come with this idea that he's been at Champions League winning PSG. He's a French international. He's someone that is obviously a top prospect for the future. I can imagine the links of people going, oh, he's going to be the next Thierry Henry, he's going to be the next Nicolas Anelka for Arsenal. Like, we're finally getting the French links back, and etc. etc. But he can be really wasteful. He can be quite rash. And I can just imagine some people turning against him. And that would be my only real concern with him. I would love to get him in. Like, he's one of these players that gets you off your seat. Like, we said it last week on episode 11 with Eze. Like, the one thing I love about Eze is that if he's on the ball, I'm excited. Like, regardless of what the score is at the time, I'm thinking he can make something happen. I think Barcola is one of those players, like you say, in transition, it's unbelievable. But again, we have this problem with mid blocks and low blocks, and we know that we seem to play teams that have the lowest blocks in the league. Is he going to be afforded that space? I'm not too sure. Maybe Rodrigo translates a little bit better because he's good in tight areas. I don't know. But in terms of, like, Stig, your question, I for me personally, I think Barcola is the more obvious fit. But for this summer, Rodrigo probably is the player that we're more likely to get through the door, and probably is the right choice for us long term. I don't know. It's really nice, isn't it, that we're talking about players that have such good quality. We had such a dearth of talent. I remember us being linked to when we got through Socrates and David Luiz and Czech and all these players.
Ryan Fraser on a free.
Oh God, yeah. It was always someone scraps or players that didn't really have a true high ceiling and were never going to get to the elite. And I don't mind us getting in players that aren't well heard of, or getting in a player from the Championship. I know you're an advocate for that. I don't mind that, but you can't be looking at those players all the time. Like, it's nice to be sitting at the top table, feeding that the same way as like a Madrid and a Bayern Munich and a City and a Liverpool, and being in these discussions for these players. Like, we're talking about Nico Williams, Rafa Leao, who are both linked with Bayern Munich. In the past, it wouldn't have been even a discussion, but now it is. So it's so nice to be part of these discussions. Like, there was a time that I didn't think we'd ever be near challenging for the title again. But it's funny how quickly things can turn around. And I think that speaks volumes for the job that Arteta and, like, his team, I don't want to just give him credit, but his team have done. And the players that they've essentially brought in and the unit they've made is unbelievable. Like, it's so good now. This summer is like a positive summer. It's one we can look forward to, which is the complete opposite to January, where I was really pessimistic. But maybe that's more my view of the ownership rather than the management side. And now I think Berta's that's a statement of intent. I think he'll do well, and I hope to God he does. I really do.
I think I'm quite convinced so far by him. I even think how we've been going about contract re-signings, how quick we are to do certain things, like the Kepa thing. I think that's an overall positive to how quick we were to really enact that. I'm not like my biggest fan of the player, but like we said last week, he is Basque, he is Spanish, like he is going to get along with the team, and he's not even that old, so it's fine. I just think I think that it's probably one of the most exciting summers from an Arsenal perspective, because it is like, yes, we know we need to make signings, and I wholeheartedly believe the club will do the signings that we need. Maybe we might get screwed over in this winger situation, and we might have to get someone else, whatever happens there. But ultimately, we will at least try and get some sort of talent in, and I kind of believe in them. I do want to ask you a question for once, actually, because I don't do that often. If we were gonna sign a third forward, obviously I think we both agree they need to be somewhat versatile. But like, what positions would you rather than be versatile in? Like a winger, or like an attacking midfielder, or even a striker type? So what do you think of that?
Oh, that's a good question, mate. I don't know, because that's so weird. Because yeah, like I always ask you the questions. It's really difficult being put on the spot. Cheers, mate. Uh, Genuinely, it sounds stupid. One of my big needs for this summer is someone that shoots. I've said it over and over again. Like I just feel that sometimes we're the opposite of trigger happy. We're like gun shy. For me, if we get through a striker and then a predominant left winger, I think an attacking midfielder. Like as much as I like the idea of a Watkins coming in, or like a I don't know, what's the Argentinian winger we were linked to? I've got just Gutierrez in my head. Is it Gutierrez? I can't remember now. Like as much as like these players could be good signings for the future, and or like a Watkins could be good now, and it gives time. I just don't think it's a necessity. Like we've seen Marino come into the 9 position. We know Trossard can, if needed, if he stays. Martinelli probably could as well. I'm not completely like against that idea. So I don't think if you have a Sesko and a Havertz, you really need another number 9. I don't think there's any real need for a Watkins. It's more of a, you know, gluttony thing where you're just being greedy and like, yeah, let's get another striker in. I think that 30 odd million could be spent better. Same with the left wing. I think if you get in, I don't know, a Rodrigo and keep Martinelli or keep a Trossard, I don't think you really have to get in another left winger. Um, Trossard's injury record is amazing. Rodrigo's is very good. Martinelli's, a bit hit and miss, but I don't think there's huge problems in that wing area. So for me, it would have to be right wing or attacking midfields. And I think, to be honest, the players we've mentioned that we're linked to on the wing can all do a job out on the right. We've seen Martinelli do it already. We've seen Ethan Winery come in and do an adequate job. He did a very good job at times. I just worry about Odegaard in this 10 role and the signing of Zubimendi and how that affects us. I think Odegaard can play centrally, and I hope he can roll back the clock and do the job that he did, when he scored the most outfield goals in play, for a midfielder in Premier League history. But can he do it again? I'm not too sure. And I just would like someone with, a slightly different profile in that position. That's why I liked Cherky, because I was like, for the deal, what it's going to cost, and the way he plays the game, that could be a really, really interesting buy. I like the idea of an Eze, but I think he's too expensive for a third attacker. I think he's going to cost, 60 million plus, and I think that's too much for us. But yeah, maybe someone just slightly different from Odegaard, someone that might beat a man or might be able to have good ball striking and shoot from distance. For me, that's what I'm looking at. But yeah, I mean, what would you want?
I think for me, it's probably the thing is, I've always wanted an attacking midfielder, and I kind of agree with you with the whole Odegaard thing. Like, is he going to be good enough there? And it's not even like, is he going to be good enough? The real worry I have about him is he going to be? Are we going to be able to say to Odegaard, like, listen, mate, you don't need to help with the progression, please. Just please don't come back to the midfield and help us, because I was watching the games, I was watching the Norway games the other day, and he was so good as a natural attacking midfielder, as much as he was kind of playing on the right. He was coming into the centre, he's putting them through balls through to Haaland, and it's really good. But in some build-up moments, he comes back deep and wants to help, and it's like, no, Odegaard, leave us alone. And I do worry that he is sometimes so hands-on, which is a great thing to have in a player, but not what we need in this situation. And I've seen a lot of people say this, that we might need him to go into them areas. I think if Rodrigo came in, him and Havertz could actually play in this attacking midfield role off each other. So one of them could play as like a secondary striker sometimes. And I feel like when I look at the attacking midfield market, it just is like you're saying, like 60 mil players. Like I've apparently rumors have come out that Tottenham are literally apparently about to buy Eze's release clause for about 68 mil, whatever it is. So, like, you look at the amount of money that is involved in these players. Like, I love a Xavi Simons. I think Xavi Simons would be so good for us because he's so good in
Yeah.
dribbling in tight areas, but also running in space. And he just shoots a lot from outside the box really well. And is a great carrier. I love Xavi Simons. But the price that, with similar at Leipzig are like with Sheshko, even though he wants to leave. So the prices are so expensive. And I think, like, I got some people disagreed with me this could take, but there were some reports that Kubo is available for £30 million, and I was like,
Ooh,
I
interesting.
as a right wing backup for Saka, he is 24. He's literally is born 3 days after me, exactly same year. So that's my guy. Um, but Kubo is like, people look at him and they just think, oh, he's small, he's not good and strong. He's just one of them players that hasn't got a great goal record. But I know for years this guy has so much potential, and like for ages, a lot of like analysts have been saying that he should be the Salah backup and Liverpool should bring him in because he does play very similar to Salah in terms of like how good he is at holding off players and his dribbling in really tight areas within the box to get shots away. He doesn't shoot overly a lot, and I think he hasn't really played a lot for them as a winger. He's played a bit more midfield. But as a player that can play in like right centre mid if we needed him to, he presses like decently well. He
Mhm.
works hard, and as a right winger, like he is a really good dribbler, and he's really like nifty in them areas, which we just don't have. And I don't think Kubo would come in being like, "Oh, I have to start." He's also plays for our best friends in Real Sociedad, so we'll just take the whole team. So I don't know. I'm like looking at him and I'm like, it really like I've wanted us to sign a third attacker, and the more the window goes on, I feel like it's unlikely. I felt Sane was a fine option. I did think he was like fine because he could shoot a lot and was like really good in them areas. But obviously that money he completely priced us out of a move. Fair enough, you've gone to Turkey, you enjoy it. Like we couldn't really compete with that. Ibermo, another one that I really wanted. 60 mil, 70 mil we're looking at now because Tottenham are now in the race. It's all
Yeah.
this massive fight. Like, it's just not worth it. Like, these players are way more expensive. I didn't think that these players would be that expensive. I thought that they'd be maybe relatively a bit cheaper. So just buying a winger that has potential that can be a backup or even attacker anywhere is probably the best thing. Like, I would love a Kudus, but where is Kudus going to start every game? No. Is he going to be happy with that? Might not do. And he's going to cost lots of money. And we just can't really afford these players. So if you wanted to get a Kudus in for 30 mil, if you wanted to get a Nico Paz in, I know he's gone back to Real Madrid because of the buyback, and then
Mhm.
they're going to try and sell him. I don't know how much that would be, but I think Leverkusen might buy him. So it's just one of them situations where, like, I actually don't think we're going to buy a third attacker now, but it's fine because, there's defenders that we're linked to now. So
Like I don't mind like Matoma as a third attacker. I think that if you could get him on a cheap, that'd be a wicked signing. Like someone that's actually prem proven, has got a lot of things that we miss. He'd be a really interesting one. Like Stig's put someone here, and I love this Stig because I was writing this in on Woklz live. If you've seen his live streams, you would have seen me writing this quite a while. He is annoyingly most likely going to go to Atletico, but I would love Alex. I mean, he's such an interesting player. Can play in both flanks. Can play at attacking midfield. His shot creating actions are through the roof. He's such a he's a wicked player. Like hard working. He would be an amazing buy, regardless of being a third attacker. If you get him through as a third attacker, I think that would take our attacking line like to one of the best in Europe easily. But yeah, it just doesn't look like a likely buy, unfortunately. Let me have a little look at his stats if I can. I want to say he's in the
uh,
95th percentile
he's
non-penalty
he's
goals. Yeah,
one of
95th
yeah,
non-pen goals.
he's one of the best creators in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, he's
He's one
clinical
of the
as
best
well,
creators
isn't
in
he?
the world. Like,
Uh,
he is insane.
The last time I looked, I think he's on about 40 odd grand a week as well. So you could get him in through the door on good wages. I don't think Villarreal are a team that are going to demand huge amounts of money, but it does look like he's going to go to Atleti, and such a shame. Like I
Well, I
love the
think
player.
I think it's his release clause. I think he's getting bought for his release clause, which is like 55 million euros or something last time
Yeah.
I looked. So it is quite a lot. He is quite an expensive player, but he's been like great for years. I mean, like, it's quite funny because, yeah, again, he's a player that I found on Football Manager, did a Villarreal save like fucking like years ago, and he was just so good. But like, he is just like, when I talk about crosses, his crossing ability on that left side is probably one of the best I've seen.
Mm.
Every single cross he does is just on the money, especially back post. He loves them, and we need that. But obviously, I don't know where he'd fit like overall. And it's just expensive. But yeah, great player. Like it's one of them other players that you look at. And I think when we talk about a third attacker, I'm not really like against buying some young player that like needs to get better. Like I know Antonio Noose has been in the news today. Speaking to some
Hmm.
Norwegian fans about Noose, like Noose has been incredible for Norway, but for Leipzig, I hate Leipzig. Like I just don't understand what they're doing with their team. I was looking at the games that Noosa has played this season. He has played in 8 or 9 positions. He's a left winger, and this season they played him at left wing 11 times or 10 times or something. He is, I mean, they play a five back, so that's why. But he has not played in his right position. They've been playing him up front, played him as secondary striker, attacker midfield on the right. And it's like this guy's not going to develop if he plays there. Like I think for 30 mil, 35 mil, that would be a good sign, and they'd probably want more because of his potential. You know, I don't talk about people like Yildiz. I love Yildiz. I'm a massive
Oh,
fan of
yeah.
Yildiz.
I
I've
like you this.
always been a fan of Yildiz because he's just. I'm a fan of a lot of Juve's wingers, like Conciao. I know he's a bit raw, and I know a lot of people aren't happy with him in so many ways, but I think he's pretty good as well. But Yildiz is just super aggressive. He's so good at cutting in and shooting, but loves going on the outside as well and cutting it across. He's just super aggressive. I think he is Turkey's shining light. I genuinely think when I know Gula hasn't played as much, so it's hard to judge. But every time I watch Yildiz play in that Turkey team, he's the star in my eyes over Gula. I think Yildiz is so special. But obviously, they want 70 mil, 60 mil. It's like he would be a backup. He's 20. He's super raw. We can't afford that. Also, we've got 400 left wingers anyway. You could argue if Trossard gets a new contract. So it's like it's with the third. So I don't mind us getting a young player and just like developing them if we have to. Like a Cuba, like Cuba's 24, he's not that young, but like he's still fine in them ways. And I think for a cheaper fee, it's an absolute fine signing to make. But other than that, I don't think this attacker sign is going to happen. But I still do worry about Saka's minutes a little bit. If you put Rodrigo over to the right, it would neglect that a little bit. But Rodrigo hasn't come to Arsenal to play on the right. So how much is he going to want to actually play there? I don't know. And it's just like one of those situations where it's a bit weird. But I don't know. Like I think when I look at third attackers of signings for forwards, I'm like, it's really like we could just take a risk and it doesn't matter. Like we could just get someone in a little bit like Fabio Vieira, and it didn't work out for him, but we can maybe get someone else and it might work out a little bit better. And they can play in some cup games and play in some other games and develop. And it's the same when I'm looking at a lot of our defensive like links that we're having. And I think the defensive links from Arsenal have been like, I know we're just on the money when it comes to defenders. We just know who's best. But our defensive links have been class. Like I think all of the defenders I've seen Arsenal linked to, I'm like, yeah, I understand
Yeah,
it. I think it makes
agreed.
sense. Um, I think we should go in for them. And it's kind of crazy. I think.
Yeah, I mean, Joel Hato, that's. I think it's almost an opportunity that you can't miss. I know there's been some confusion and people saying, I think Rohan recently said, don't confuse the quality of a player with a necessity of buying. Sometimes I think you actually do. You have to look at certain players and go, right, okay, he is going to be like an incredibly good player. And yes, it probably doesn't work because what does it mean for Miles Lewis Skelly long term? Does that mean he's actually moving into midfield and then you've got Declan Rice already there and Mendy's coming in? So how does it work? For me, I think he's too good to miss out on. He's very similar in terms of, and I know it's easy to say like with Timber because of the whole Ajax thing, but I think he's a player that has got a lot of upside. He's not going to cost a fortune. He's like a young leader as well, something that we look for. He's just like almost like an archetypal Arteta player. He's such an interesting like profile, and it's really nice that we've been again linked to him for a really, really long time. So the club are just so good at identifying these players,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we'll get another defender through the door, but whether it is a Hato or if it's going to be more of a left field player like an El Hadj Malik Diouf, I think he'd be a really good player, like left back, able to hit the channels, different types of crosses. He'd be a really interesting player. Like if you could get him in without it being ridiculously expensive, he might be the type of player that we could go for. I don't know. I think the club, at the end of the day, we're going to hopefully get through Zubimendi, a striker, a left winger, A number 2 goalkeeper, which seems like a shrewd piece of business. It's not the player I would have gone for, but I completely understand it. And I think Berta's probably looking at it again, right, if we're going into the summer, what are our actual needs? And let's prioritize our money in certain areas. And we seem to be, doing that. And that's something we haven't done in the past. I feel sometimes it's not scattergun, but almost like we've got, okay, like last summer, I think an attacker should have come in. And it's just a shame that we didn't get that done. And sometimes I think maybe some of the money hasn't been spent right in just in terms of like in the right areas. I'm not too bothered. I think on the whole, our signings have been very good. Our transfer business has been great, but like it could have,
Yeah.
like us missing out on that. And I think for the price it was, surely there was a way we could have got that deal done. Like there's got to be something we could have done, and maybe that like the way everything was prioritized, we kind of missed out on that deal. But I don't know. I think it looks like we're doing the right deals in the right order at the right time.
Yeah. It's just a weird situation as well, because I think the most annoyance I have is that, I mean, I get that these deals are hard. They're not easy. Even now, it's a hard deals to try and get the people we are. But we are literally linked to the same people. I did a video last year talking about who Arsenal should sign in the last summer, and I literally mentioned Williams, Sheshko, like Hato, the same players, and we're a year on, and they are the main players linked again. Like that is annoying. I get that it's good that they've developed for another year, and now then, I mean, in Sheshko's point of view, he didn't want to come last year, so now he does. It makes a little bit more sense. But like I think when I look at that stuff, I'm like, well, I kind of wanted us to move like not on from these players, because if they are the perfect fit, they are the perfect fit. But sometimes it is better to, diversify and look at other players like Liao, who we previously didn't consider because he wasn't available last summer, but maybe he is now, even though obviously we have question marks. I mean, I do want to quickly mention, because there was reports that came out today that Arsenal are like looking at a guy called Alexandre Ribeiro from Lille. And it's quite funny because we mentioned Yoel Hato being a fullback from Ajax who's a teenager. Oh, what that gives me some reminds me of some other player that we signed from them. And then we look at Ribeiro, Brazilian centre back from Lille. It's like I feel like I've seen this one before, but he, like, when I look at him and I look at Arsenal's links to him, I don't think it costs a lot of money, maybe 30 mil, 25 mil. He's like 25 years old, so he isn't like young, but he's literally a 2-footed centre back that is like Gabriel, super physical, runs out of his like the box a lot. It goes in on players, is super quick and closes down wide areas really well,
Passing's
like
great too.
Gabriel. He is an absolute, like, both feet. I think last season his passing was something like 54% on his right foot, 46% of on his left foot, which is insane. That is incredibly like even. And he's a line breaker. He does confident passes through the lines. He's capable of switching it both wings really well. And I look at him and I'm like, that's another talent from a Lille team that always make talent, that if he wants to come, if we bring him in, he'd be probably happy with a backup. Like, reports are that he'd be happy with coming in as a backup. If he came in, he could cover on the left centre back role, which is where he usually plays. He played there for Brazil the other day, and he plays there for Lille. But because he is technically right-footed, he is both-footed. He can easily play on that right centre back role as well. And we've complained, that's the big thing for me. We need to get a backup for Saliba. That's an aggressive type of centre back. So if we do have to have a Kivior in a game, we can play Kivior alongside an aggressive type of defender, and it works a bit more. Then I think Kivior and Saliba, which I do think sometimes Saliba is a bit scared to be the aggressive one because it isn't his like type of game. And Kivior is never going to do that because that is just, he isn't a physical type of guy. So I think getting someone like that in would be fine. If we didn't get a Hato in and we got Ribeiro in instead, I'd probably be more catered to that because it'd be cheaper, makes a lot more sense, I think, long term. And then you could still get a Diouf in if you want for 15 to 20 mil on the left back role to be that overlapping one, or you just not bother and use Calafiori and Miles as your left backs. Like, I think when I look at stuff like that, that makes me excited. Mascara we spoke about before, another great defender, super aggressive as well, can play on that right side. And I look at these links and I'm like, these centre backs, in my opinion, there's so many great young centre backs out there. And because we don't need a starting centre back, it's not a big area of concern. I think we could easily sign like a young centre back for 20 to 30 mil, put them on the bench. You come in, learn under Sleeper and Gabriel, and you can play like sporadic minutes and get better and better. And I think that's absolutely fine. And I think like when I look at that, them sort of signings, they're the signings that make your team great to amazing. The sort of squad players that bed out the team where we can finally have some reliable players to come in. Gabriel's a bit tired or Sleep is a bit tired. Let's bring in Ribeiro. Let's bring in Kivior. Let's give these guys the options because I mean that is what we need to do as well as much as signing these star players. I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Stig's put here as well, a guy that you said about a long time ago, mate. If a defender's coming in, maybe to Kuiper, he is a different type of defender than we've already got right now. Marslow Skelly, more in midfield. Calafiori, more or less centre back. So big Gab can rest a bit. More rotation, more options. Like, I couldn't agree more. Like, he's a really interesting player as well. I think it's mad, isn't it? Mad to think that, again, we might need to buy another left back. We might need to buy another guy who can play left centre back. All of these players that we're mentioning are in that mould. But at least the one good thing is the players that we are linked to are of a really, really good like standard. And they've got a lot of upside. And Stig, don't ever worry about the spelling and the autocorrects, mate. I think my comment in here saying put your questions in the chat, I already grammatically put it wrong. And that really, get you questions in the chat. That's actually what I wrote. Like, that is dreadful. So don't ever apologise about the spellings, mate. It can't be helped. It happens to all of us. Reece, thank you for this evening, mate. It has been a pleasure as always. If you haven't, everyone, hit the subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Like, the messages tonight has been great. We are trying to go live every single Friday at 8 o'clock. We've now got the system now where we can bring the chat up. I know it's last week it didn't work. It is working. We're going to try and bring a couple of extra little bits and bobs in, have some sections where you guys can get your questions in, and we'll address those as well. Reece, tell everyone where they can find you after the pause.
Woklz Football, Woklz YouTube, Woklz YT on Twitter, Woklz Football. You know how it is. We upload a lot, apparently. But yeah, it's been good. Transfer news is good. I find it fun. I find it probably the most fun thing because it's so. I feel like there's so much less stress. I don't feel the worry about Arsenal playing, and I just can have fun looking at new players.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, mate. Like, honestly, I wasn't grey until I got, coming online and talking about it makes it so much more stressful as well. Like, the instant reactions on the Canon podcast, coming on with like George and Alex and talking straight after, they're so chilled. And I have to like proper compose myself. I struggle so much. Like, I am a real emotional fan. I know I am. If Arsenal lose, it ruins like my day. It ruins my week. I am awful with it. So yeah, transfer season's lovely. You can actually, talk about different players and, different concepts about how we might play and how players might work and the deals. Like, I always find it really interesting. I love this time. I do like to think about how we can change without the players coming in, but it's always a good shout. If you haven't, obviously subscribe to Fodder and Football below. You can find me Fodder on Footy on X. I don't upload much. I'm the opposite of Reece. I will start doing more, obviously. I have got 6 weeks off soon. I can't believe it's going to be amazing. So I'm going to have to upload at least once a week outside of this podcast. We have also got in the works some more guests coming back on. So the Canon Fodder podcast will be starting again. So there'll be some guests on there. Reece doesn't know this. We're going to have a special guest soon on the FOKLZ podcast, which I'll let you know about in a minute, Reece. We have a chat about that. And yeah, some other things in the works. So hopefully the channel will be growing and we'll I genuinely like Stig, thank you, like Moss, like it's so nice that we're getting a bit of a community now, but hopefully like the content can get a bit better and we can get you guys involved a little bit more. But until next Friday, have a good week, guys, and we will catch you on the next one. Cheers now. There we go. I think we're off.